Hey Collective, happy Supermoon in Gemini. Emotions are running high and the answers you need are coming. And I was actually having a hard time getting into this energy for a bit. So I sat down to do a longer meditation last night and I ended up PTFO'd on the couch. And I'm actually kind of glad it turned out that way because, I mean, not only did I get the rest I was clearly in need of, uh, but I woke up with a song in my head this morning, like first thing, and it's Teacher Teacher by Jinjer. And an interesting theme that fits the duality of Gemini. So we'll start getting some cards out here and go from there. So, Teacher Teacher, that has a theme of like a teacher bagging the student's head and wrapping their knuckles. So, like the old school Catholic stuff. But from the teacher's perspective, they're being merciful because they're teaching this student how to be, how to stay in line. And it's interesting that, like, how twisted that logic can become and kind of how that blends into, full moon and a lunatic, the roots of that word. But we've got the King of Cups in reverse here. Cold, bad advice, emotional manipulation, inner feelings. So again, that duality, the inner world being drastically different from the outside world. And that can also lean into that full moon theme, the things coming to the surface being fully illuminated. But what? Maybe it's these answers that you need that are supposedly coming? And interesting that I said supposedly. Are you dealing with someone who is deceptive? Maybe not like overtly, but telling you what you want to hear and then going back and doing what they were going to do anyway? It's kind of like if someone's trying to slow down any sort of proceeding. I think I've brought up in a couple of readings recently the divorce that will never end. So are they telling you that you're gonna get something like, yeah, I'll get that to you, and then just crickets? And we've got the Four of Wands in reverse. So lack of support, breakdown in communication, home conflict. And this also kind of reads like the Six of Wands in reverse. Whereas in the upright, those would both be more outward public celebrations, and in reverse, more personal, like quiet celebrations. So we've got Pisces, Aquarius, and Aries on the board so far. Yeah, a lot of conflict, but it feels like this dual nature. Like maintaining appearances. Maybe while these proceedings or the situation is underway. Because the Four of Wands, that can represent a home. So maybe it's an argument about a home, literal or metaphorical. We've got the Ace of Wands, new project, inspiration, willpower, new opportunities, growth. And always reminds me of the rune Kanaz, the creative fire. And you can kind of see, it looks like a castle in the background there. It actually kind of looks like the same castle from the Four of Wands. It doesn't have that red, those red tops to it, but very similar structure. I'm not understanding who this King of Cups is, though. This could be the person that you are in this situation with. I'm almost getting like a tertiary feeling from this, though. Because if you are embroiled in some sort of legal dispute, right? Why would you take advice or take heed of the word of like the person you're in conflict with? Like, this feels like another party. But let's get another one of these here. The Oracle of the Radiant Sun. Let's see what is this hidden layer of this conflict? Ooh, affair and authority. And affair is Venus in Leo, and authority is Mars in Capricorn. And if you don't already suspect things, don't let this be the like, oh, the tarot person on YouTube told me that you were having an affair. Like, no. You know, use your discernment. And affair doesn't necessarily have to mean a literal, like, someone was cheating on another person. They could just be, like, trying to win the game, like cheating at the game, you know, whatever the respective game is. Maybe it is with authority. If you're in a legal dispute, are they... The phrase that came to mind was like slipping one to the judge, but you can kind of interpret that as both a physical affair and like a monetary affair. The answers you need are coming and emotions are running high. And I mean, houses are not cheap. You know, people will do what they gotta do, but I'm feeling more from this. Because this is, people talk about this as like the 1111 card and the twin flame card and so on and so forth. So that greater purpose in life, whatever you consider that to be for yourself. If it's stability, if it's your own creative project, maybe there's question on like, if it is over a literal home, like what's going to happen to it depending on who gets it, you know? Because maybe you're like me and you're not committed to living in a home, like a house. I mean, like I want to live in a home, right? It's winter. But I don't see the issue with apartments, you know? I don't want to be responsible for the appliances, for the wiring, for like major sewer line repairs if something like that goes out, you know? And with the cost of houses, like either I'm going to be paying a landlord or I'm going to be paying the bank. So if you have, you know, those views that I do, maybe the concern from the other side of the table is that if you end up with this home, you'll sell it and they want to keep it, like something like that. So we've got birth, Venus in Cancer, and risk. Saturn and Aries. Maybe there is a literal birth, you know, talking about those differences between either side of the table. Maybe someone is having a kid and that's why they want the house, or the proceeds from that sale could birth your new creative opportunity and eliminate a lot of risk, because then you would be like your own investor, you know? But let's see. I want to get to the root here on the left. What is this conflict? Like, what is this difference of opinions? Like, what is the squabble over the Four of Wands? And I'm not trying to trivialize. You know, I'm just saying. Why are we fighting? Why can't we get along? Conclusions are within reach. So maybe a long-standing battle that's nearing its end? Full moon eclipse? When is the next one? March? I think that's a solar eclipse. Maybe in Virgo? Or in Aries? Something like that. So long-standing battle. I'm just noticing the shade on the moon here. I don't know if the camera's going to pick up that nice, like, ombre. Kind of looks like an Ankh in their eternal life. Oh, and the Lovers. Okay. Interesting. Love, harmony, union, partnerships, passion, values. But alignment, that's that 11-11. You know, doesn't necessarily need to be about an as without person. It can be about yourself. Aligning with yourself and your real purpose and what you want. And that can be that Ace of Wands. You know? Maybe you're like so many of us that had to put aside the creative project in the interest of labor, you know, like in this economy. It's a common theme. Oh, and the Lovers is a Gemini card as well. Reinforcing that full moon theme. And there's a big bright sun in the background, and Archangel Raphael, the healer. So this conflict is to help heal. Maybe a long-standing wound in you outside of whatever relationship you have with this person. Maybe this King of Cups in reverse. We've got the Seven of Cups here, so illusion. Opportunities, choices, wishful thinking, searching for purpose, yeah. And this is often talked about as like a more negative card. I don't know. I've always been kind of a fortune favors the bold kind of gal. Like, of course, I prefer informed consent when making like big decisions like this. Don't just want to blindly like gallivant into something. But at the same time, like, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And I think a lot of people who aren't so secure in themselves will be very resistant to like that approach, you know, like really clinging to stability. And I'm not knocking stability, like it's very important. And it can be kind of a like a gilded cage. You know, we have this one life to live, or at a minimum, this iteration of me, I only have one chance at that. I want to soar my wings and fly, you know? I don't want to just spend my life like in front of a computer with the posture of a fried shrimp and answering emails all the time. Like, I want to do something different. Yeah, the tower. Okay, tower reversed. So this is a change that has been resisted for a really long time, because the tower will fall, upright or reverse. And actually, it's the lovers that are falling out of the tower. So they've gone through the course of their relationship, their union, and it's time to part ways. But resisting that change, now it's a dumpster fire. Like now everything is going up in flames, and had either, both, whichever party called it sooner, it may have not escalated to this point. Like, no guarantees, of course. But this could also be like that stirring you felt in yourself for a really, really long time. And maybe you couldn't pursue the creative opportunity or whatever it is that you're after, the new project. And I'm also getting like the new person too. You know, maybe a more stable and healthy relationship, a more compatible fit. You felt that stirring and you've resisted it, maybe like for survival reasons, you know. There's a lot of, actually most manifestation advice really makes me crazy. I really don't like it because it's so steeped in privilege and survivorship bias. A real failure to recognize, you know, situations that just because it hasn't happened to you or anybody you didn't know doesn't mean it's never happened to anybody. And so often I hear things like, oh, you're not trapped, it's just a mindset. Like, no, it's just my ability to do math. Like, I think we as the people who are taking it upon ourselves to give others advice actually do have a responsibility to not be dismissive of what other people might be going through that we don't understand. Just my 2 cents. But what led to this like disillusion of the lovers? Because it's like the way these 3 cards kind of play out, it's like, oh, great happiness, you know, mystery, and then destruction. Like, what happened in the middle there? I want to know what love is. That song. Criticism, yeah, that'll do it. And it's another Mars card, you know, Tower's a Mars card. Mars in Virgo. And Virgo is, you know, the perfectionist. And so that's a distorted, out of balance Virgoian energy. So criticism, excess criticism in the relationship, like this is starting to feel more and more like a relationship reading. Emotions are running high and the answers you need are coming. And the relationship could be, you know, of any ilk, of any context. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. This could be over like an inheritance within a family or something like that. You know, maybe you're the black sheep like me, and something that is rightfully yours, the problem with you getting it is that just nobody wants you to have it. Romance. Venus in Taurus. Okay, maybe this is like a romantic relationship. I feel like I'm being corrected there with that. So, criticism within a romantic relationship. Yeah, I mean, that'll do it. That'll mess up whatever it is you got going on. Quarrel in reverse, and idealism, Sun in Aquarius. And quarrel in reverse, another Mars card, Mars in Cancer. I'm not getting like no quarrel. I'm getting hidden quarrel behind closed doors. Like the duality aspect, showing a different face in public than behind closed doors. And this was an argument I had when I was in a domestic violence relationship. Um, you know, like pleading to be treated well, to be treated like a human. And one of the things I brought up in that relationship was how differently he acted in public versus private. You know, like your actions don't track, your words don't track. Um, and it was just excuse after excuse after excuse. Like, well, I was raised by my grandparents and they were of an older generation and they handled things behind closed doors. And to wit, I was like, okay, but this is now. Like, you are an adult dealing with your problems now. Like, just defaulting to this, like, core wound guilt trip thing that, like, well, I'm wounded, so that's why I have to do these things to you. No. No, 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 no. That is not how this works because I am also traumatized by you specifically. Also other people, but I didn't turn around and do these things. I didn't do anything like this. You know, I'm not Mother Superior or anything like that, but being wounded and traumatized doesn't immediately mean you're going to turn around and do the same thing. Like, you still possess the ability to reason, and you chose cruelty. I don't feel bad for you. Especially if they're not doing anything like going to therapy or whatever, maybe a support group, something like that. But this core wound guilt tripping of like they're just acting from their wounds and that's why they're treating you this way. Like, no, I think they've learned by now that that is like the societal excuse we give people to not improve, to not work on their stuff. And what was his name? Dr. Salerno? I think his book is called like Cruelty by Nature. It's fairly new, but I've got my eye on it. It looks really interesting because he's challenging this notion that people are just acting from a wounded place. Like, no, you're just being cruel. In at least the cases that I've seen him mention on Instagram. But over here on the right, so this is what's going on behind closed doors. Romantic relationship, a quarrel. What's going on in front of the closed doors? Like in front of people? What's in the public eye? Prosperity lies ahead. New moon in Taurus. Dare I say that you will prevail? No guarantees. I'm not a lawyer. I also don't know what your situation is having a one-sided conversation with a camera. Um, but you know your situation better than me. Maybe we're thorough enough, maybe this has been going on long enough that some behavioral patterns have potentially emerged and other people can see this person for who they are. Because, people who are antagonistic are not necessarily as slick as they think they are, especially with people they don't have that, like, psychological grip over. Um, but tell me more about prosperity lies ahead. Huh. Eight of Pentacles reversed. There's that Virgo, perfectionism, misdirected activity, no motivation, self-development. So is that what other people are seeing? That this King of Cups in reverse, I'm taking this as the other side of the table to you. They want to win without effort. Either this legal battle or that's just kind of a theme in their life, that they want the rewards without putting in the effort. Something to do with the house. Like they want the perfect family portrait. And as long as that portrait is what is the image projected, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if anybody behind closed doors is actually miserable, people are screaming at each other, whatever. As long as the perception is that things are fine, that's what matters. Not that things are actually very much not fine. Because those antagonistic personalities, they are not interested in actually resolving the conflict in most cases. And I'm just speaking from personal experience here. They are interested in the problem going away, but the benefits remaining. So, like, maintaining access to you without actually improving their behavior. Like, I think we were talking about that at the beginning. The saying what you want to hear. Like, you'll get this paperwork and tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and there's no paperwork, and then the next day comes and there's no paperwork. It's just excuse after excuse after excuse to keep kicking the can down the road, and nothing ever gets resolved. And then eventually you reach a point where you either are going to put up with this or you're going to take them to task. And they really are putting you in a lose-lose situation. Yeah, Three of Swords. I'm taking all of these. But they are putting you in a lose-lose situation because they are maneuvering you into, well, you have to be the bad guy because you're the one that's taking the action to dissolve the relationship or whatever, even though behind closed doors you have been like, let's go to therapy, what about a recovery program, something like that, like anything, like trying over and over and over again to the point where like you're a nag or what have you. And then when everything breaks, they've had the perception, that public perception for so long, that you look like the crazy one. You look like the antagonist. You look like the aggressor. And by that point, when things finally kick off, then it's just so much he said, she said, it's really down to like personal loyalties, and then however the uh like legal stuff works out. And the Three of Swords, that is the heartbreak card. It's also the mind over emotions card. So, not leading with how you feel about this person, because that's how the like emotional manipulation works. Um, the hoovering and the discard and the yada yada yada. It's a real tough mindset to get into, to go cold for someone. But once you do, hang on to it. If you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that like you're done, this is no longer viable, you have no interest in resolving it, that does kind of help you get into that seat, as it were. But it still doesn't feel good because this is someone you cared about, you know, and outside of a romantic relationship, family, you know, inheritance could be that. But you really have to get into this detached, like, business mode. But then behind this, we have the Sun and the Five of Swords. And the Five of Swords, the way these are split, like one individual is holding three, and then there are two on the ground. So heartbreak and then stalemate. Um, and the Sun is illumination. And the most positive card in the deck, arguably. But I'm feeling more of that duality. You know, the sun and the moon. Illuminating what, like, the true nature of this King of Cups in reverse. And I don't know if you could hear that, but there was a crow cawing, saying that as a yes. So illuminating the nature of the King of Cups in reverse, and not like a vindictive, like, haha, they can see you, you know, like a, look at what this person has been doing to me. You know, like, you guys pointed the finger at me like I was the crazy one, and look at what was happening behind closed doors, and you just brushed me off. You didn't even try to verify anything this person was saying about me, you know? Like, the smear campaigns, that's another behavior that comes along with the discards and the hoovers and the so forth. But those smear campaigns really lean on the personal loyalties and the public perception. And that's why, like, I don't really buy into this whole core wound guilt trip thing, because they know what they're doing. It's so calculated. Like, how do you accidentally do a smear campaign? Like, no. And especially dealing with adults, like, you've been around the block enough times to know how harmful these sort of things are. Uh, and probably have lost someone to unaliving. Like, you know, people take their lives over stuff like this, and you still choose to do that? Like, get a grip. Um, Innovation. Jupiter in Aquarius. Power. Moon in Scorpio. And patience. Jupiter in Virgo. Isn't Jupiter... I think Jupiter just squared Mercury or something like that. Expansive communication. Or maybe where there was a stalemate in communication, it's starting to open up. So innovation, power, and patience. A little bit of a stumper. A new approach. Did King of Cups in reverse do something hasty? To try and gain power in this situation? Is that what's being illuminated? Is that what's bringing their nature to the surface? Something they did of their own accord that, like, innovation is something people haven't seen before. It doesn't mean it's something that hasn't been done before. It's just coming to the light, the sun card. So maybe they got impatient somewhere along in this process. Emotions are running high, and tried to regain power in some sort of revealing way. The smear campaign. Maybe somebody figured it out. Like, wait, nothing you said was true, and you are in this legal dispute with them, and now all the dots are like boop, 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 boop. Like, everything is starting to come together really fast because, like, the tactics of somebody who's engaging in stuff like a smear campaign and whatnot really rely on isolation and perception. And once those walls break down, they kind of all go like dominoes. And I mean, there's nothing you can do about personal loyalties and such. Like, they have to see the light when they're ready to, if they ever are. Because even though what this person or anybody who is doing like a smear campaign is like, what they're doing is wrong, and that processing that grief of seeing the mask of someone you thought you knew is so hard. So whomever was involved in the smear campaign, maybe this is their first encounter with something that cruel, with something that malicious. They have to go through their own process, through their own time, whatnot. Do what you have to do to protect your interests. But so for this last placement, we've got prosperity is ahead, the end is nigh, the answers you need are coming. What will break the wall, like, into the finish line? Or what is the finish line? Is there a signal, like a road sign, or even celestial timing? New moon in Gemini. Okay. So, there's another one. A new moon, another new moon. Wow, a new start is coming. Cool. From the full moon to the new moon. So it could be 2 weeks. Or it could be all the way into Gemini season, so like May? April, May? Or is that May, June? One of them. But the new start is coming. Communication is key. Maybe the victory will be communicated to you? Because I've never owned a house, so I don't know how house stuff works. I don't know if when you split assets of that degree, like how that would work, because when I got divorced, everything was in my name. And it was an apartment, so it was a lot easier. Let's see. So what's this communication? About. Okay. The Hanged Man in reverse. Ah, delays, standstill, resistance, stalling, indecision, fear of sacrifice, and lack of control. So the communication is that there's going to be a delay. Oh, and the never-ending burden. Ten of Wands in reverse. Need more. What about the Hanged Man? So we've got the Five of Wands in reverse and the Star in reverse. So delays and avoiding conflict. So Five of Wands in reverse, avoiding conflict. Agreeing to disagree, respecting differences. I'm also getting from the Star in reverse, I'm getting some insincerity. Like, oh, and these are opposite signs too, Leo and Aquarius. But insincerity by way of they're begrudgingly relinquishing, you know? Like maybe they cannot hold up this process anymore. Like, okay, if you haven't produced documents by now, like we default make a ruling in favor of the other person. We have other things to do. Like, we cannot keep playing your games. Could very well be that. Because that was something I did run into in my divorce. Like, something defaulted to me because they didn't show up to mediation. Like, okay, like if you don't show up, you don't show up. The court system is not gonna go for the like, but, like, nah, we moved on to something else already. Like, we are backed up for decades. But maybe that's what was seen over here. This impatient power grab is what whomever the respective authority is. Egotism in reverse. Mars and Leo. But this respective authority maybe has seen this attempt at a power grab and is like, nope, we're out of here. Like, we're done with you. We're not playing these games anymore. And, seeing those delays for what they were, that this person was just playing a game. Yeah, domination. Mars in Sag. A lot of Mars. Again, there's been a lot of Mars cards, I feel like, recently. But it's in reverse. So they can't control this situation anymore, which, thank goodness. Whatever you're going through. It sucks being in a situation that, like, you're at a stalemate. Things are just being controlled by this other person. And it is a form of, like, financial abuse, especially if you're dealing with assets and whatnot. But it can also be emotional and psychological abuse, keeping you involved in a situation longer than is necessary. Eccentricity. Saturn in Aquarius, but is in reverse. How do I put this? This is like putting it in the face of the antagonistic personality that you're not special. That you can't just control other humans and then expect it to be fine. Like, you don't get to control their outcomes, And like anything that has to do with coercive control, like fear-based control, like that's not, who is it, Laura Richards, that said, if fear is in the room, consent is not. And that she's typically, like she's referring to assault, things like that. But this is also, like, you can expand that out to different contexts. Like, engaging in a dissolution of a marriage. Like, what if they threaten to harm themselves because you're trying to leave this relationship? That's coercion. That is trying to control your actions through fear. That, if I do what's best for me and they harm themselves, it's my fault. It's not. And if somebody's threatening that, please talk to someone. Um, Help that person get the help that they need. Because even though, like, somebody acting like this and making your life a living hell, like, that is vile. Um, and they still deserve to get the help they need. Don't shoot the messenger, please. That person is clearly in need of some serious help. And it doesn't make what they're doing right. And it's so far above your head, you have to defer to somebody else. We've got health. Sun in Virgo. Yeah, that's just for your health. That is such a burden to, like, an undue burden, that's way beyond the average person's skill set. Like, not only if someone is trying to control you through threats of harm to themselves or potentially others, you know, but engaging in smear campaigns and, I don't know, threatening your resources, something like that, that will destroy your health so fast. Um, escape. Escape is the way to go. And I would say, like, people dealing with co-parenting situations, like, that's such a complication. But if you're not, get away from that person. You know, People stay in touch with others who are not good for them for a really, really long time for understandable reasons. Like, I'm not trying to harp on you. It's just when you really sever that cord, that's when true healing can begin. Because if you're continuously pouring salt into the wound, it's not going to close. You know? Like, it took me, I don't know how many months after I actually moved out of the domestic violence situation to actually break contact with that person, because they still have this, like, psychological grasp on you. Yeah, Lost on You by LP. And that is kind of giving me, just like everything I'm saying is lost on you. Like, you've tried and tried and tried with this person, and it's like talking to a brick wall. And escape room is the activity. So if that's like it's like those stand-up comedians from the South, like, here's your sign. you know. But escape rooms are fun. Be a good activity with friends, with healthy family relationships, you know. Maybe a new person. Maybe you've met somebody new over the course of however long this has taken to extract yourself from this relationship, you know. And I am absolutely not a Puritan. You're not going to get any shade from me for dating someone while you are in separation and, like, trying to get out from under the thumb of the influence of your previous relationship. Like, I know some people get really hung up on, like, well, once I'm divorced and whatnot. Like, okay, like, you do you, but I'm gonna live my life. So, but a good song, good activity. Hopefully, if you are going through something that's difficult, you're getting the support you need. Please talk to a therapist, talk to a support group, talk to a trusted friend. I can't emphasize that enough, because if you've got this versus, one side versus the other, their family versus yours, maybe confide in someone completely outside of this situation if you feel like that's a good choice for you. But overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.